Jon and Kyle, Arctic, or is it ARKTK? How do you pronounce it?
You know, that we should have thought about that a little bit more, because people are, it is Arctic, by the way, it's Arctic cold wear, but there is a little bit of confusion, I think, out there about how to pronounce it.
I think most people would think Arctic, but I think you're good, you know, and I'd imagine you did what you did because you wanted to lock down the domains and everything like that.
Yeah. We made it all caps in a lot of the stuff that we spell, so like that might be adding to the confusion, but it is Arctic.
Great opening question, by the way.
Thanks. So yeah, we are at the Jersey Shore right now. You guys ever been?
Yeah. We actually used to, both of our families vacation at LBI a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Where are you guys at?
We just took like
Undecided.
yeah,
We're not there yet.
maybe Maine. I don't know. We got to figure it out.
I mean, like, where do you live now?
Oh, we live in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
We started the company in Connecticut. Yeah. We're both from Fairfield, Connecticut, where we grew up.
So tell me about like how you got started.
Yeah. So it's kind of a long journey, actually, but how did we get started? I mean, in cold plunging, why don't I start with cold plunging? Because that's really where I think Arctic really started.
Definitely started with you.
So I got into cold plunging during COVID. I was living in New York. I moved back up to where we're from, and we're living in Connecticut, and, you know, there's the Long Island Sound. And, you know, we both live in like a little beach community, this neighborhood called Black Rock, which is actually part of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And the lockdowns happen. And everybody's kind of like trying to figure out like how to not go crazy, you know? Gyms are closed. I remember like ordering workout gear and it just like never came. I don't think it ever even actually showed up at my house. Like I think some Chinese company still owes me for that. And I forget like what like made me decide to do it, but I just went into the Long Island Sound in the middle of the winter. And I felt, except there was like no other outlet that I had. And it completely like changed like everything. Like I just felt so amazing afterwards. And I was like, okay, I really needed that.
Did you know you were cold plunging at the time?
I did not. I didn't really know what cold plunging was.
You didn't know it was a word.
I didn't know it was a thing yet.
That's so funny.
So I started going to the Long Island Sound on my own and doing this. And one day we had a snowstorm. And I literally remember I was like body surfing like this wave. And some guy comes running up to me and he goes, "Dude, do you know who Wim Hof is?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "The Iceman. You're the Iceman." So like I heard of Wim Hof. I had never heard of Wim Hof before. So I look up Wim Hof, and like that was what like opened up like there's like this whole community of people who are doing this. Like obviously this has been going on in places like Scandinavia and Norway or whatever forever, but this whole world of people that had been doing this was just kind of introduced to me like in one fell swoop. So I went home, I talked to a couple of friends, was like, "Hey, would you want to do this?" A couple people were like, "Yeah, sure." So we started kind of doing it like with a couple of my buddies from my town. And then I went on Facebook and started like a Facebook group and said, "Hey, Jennings Beach," because that's the beach we used to go to, or we do go to now. "Does anybody want to just start cold plunging every Sunday at 1?" I just picked a number. I should have made it 12 because football, like, I wasn't thinking about NFL. The season was already over at that time. So I was just like, anybody want a cold plunge? Sundays at 1:00, we'll be there. And people started showing up, and then more people. And then all of a sudden, like today, this is now 4+ years later. We have like 30 some odd people who will plunge regularly. There's more people than that in the group. It's just like who can make it on a Sunday. There'll usually be 30 to 50 sometimes people in the water. So that's what opened me up to cold plunging. The idea for our first product, and this is our first product. We have other products we're working on and we'll be releasing, but our first product are the 0 degree shorts, and we call them armored shorts. They have wetsuit, neoprene inner liner. The idea like struck me one day when a woman brought her husband. It was his first time cold plunging. He really wanted to do it, and he got in. It was like the middle of the winter when the water gets really, really cold, and he goes in and he gets down to his neck, and within like a minute or two, he runs out of the water screaming, "My balls, they're killing me." And I was like, oh shit, maybe there's something that could help this guy, you know? And the product's really evolved, and the thought behind why we've made the product has evolved since then. But that was sort of like the spark that was like, oh yeah, there's pain that can be addressed here, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever heard any horror stories with people and their boys? Because I have.
I'd love to hear one of yours to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So one person close to me in my life, not going to say who he is. Yeah, he would cold plunge, and it's actually happened to him multiple times where his testicles have gone up into his cavity. Yeah. So when I told him about these shorts, I mean, he was pumped. But yeah, like, and so now, like, even when he cold plunges, like, he kind of like holds his scrotum down to just make sure nothing happens. But I tell him, I don't even know, because if your balls want to go up there, like, maybe they should be. That's like a natural thing. But yeah, I don't even know if he should be cold plunging anymore.
You know, I've seen people using neoprene underneath their bathing suits for lots of reasons. Some people have like actual like acute pain. Some people are worried about frostbite. Some people are just like, look, it makes the process just a little bit better for me, and it makes me do it more consistently. So like, I've heard a lot of different reasons for why people would do something like wear insulated.
Yeah, there's so many reasons.
Yeah.
And so many like places that you might want insulation. And
definitely. We're working on footwear right now, actually. We think that's definitely one of the another place where like you can make a product that we see that like there is stuff on the market already for footwear, but it's mostly cheap. It's not well made. It's not attractive. And there's definitely places where it can be improved. So that's one of the things we're working on now.
What about you, Kyle? You have a good cold plunge story? You first? Jon got you in?
You know, Jon had started this a few months before I got involved with him, and we live within walking distance next to each other. So he'd always be talking about this, and I wasn't really into the cold plunging thing, but part of my career is I'm seasonal, so I get laid off in the wintertime. And when these guys are first starting this stuff in the wintertime, I started hanging out, helping out. I didn't even know what I was doing or what I was helping out with. I was really just hanging out with one of my best friends. And next thing you know, I'm part of the company. I don't even know what company I'm part of, you know? I mean, really, I was just in it to get out of the house, hang out with my boy.
We were doing trips, like we would go up to like upstate New York and cold plunge in like a waterfall, middle of the winter.
Go hiking, leave the family, let's go.
So Kyle didn't even know what our product was for literally like he got a piece of the company and didn't even know what we were selling.
I signed the document. I said, so what do we sell?
Sell me this pen.
Right? So that's how I got started. I mean, when he first started cold plunging, I think I had probably zero interest in it because I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And then through doing it, I started really just getting into it because of the dopamine rush. That was like the first thing that obviously attracts most people.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just all recovery. A big CrossFit guy, get injured a lot. That was a huge thing.
But he's a dopamine junkie, by the way. I don't know if everyone's in it for the dopamine. Like, I guess so. Like, you've identified dopamine as a thing that you want all the time.
Yeah, I'm a jumpy. Just chasing the high.
Well, as far as getting it, it's got to be one of the healthier ways. So
yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Well, they say it's better than a line of cocaine, right?
The jury's out. But yeah, so just to reiterate, so how long was it from your first cold plunge till when you got these shorts to market?
So there's a third parter, and it's my brother, and we all went on I guess it was his unofficial bachelor party. I don't know why it was not just called his bachelor party.
It was his bachelor party.
But we all went to Key West for his bachelor party, and there's a bunch of like old friends. Kyle's known my brother forever since he was a kid. So we all went, and it was just like a debaucherous, fun, crazy weekend. And at the end of it, my brother was like, I want to start a business with you. And I know that cold plunging is like this big thing that's happening you're obsessed with. Where is there a way to improve people who cold plunges life in some way? That was the beginning of it. And that was only like less than 2 years. That was like a year and a half ago. So it came from that to like spending all this time developing. We're very fortunate in certain ways. Like we got a great designer immediately, someone who works at No Bull, the CrossFit company, who was down to just moonlight on this because he liked the idea. So he was working at night, working on the design, sending stuff back and forth because he's on the West Coast, and just like really like, and it was sort of like we love these shorts, like kind of like, can you combine these in some way, like add a personal thing? And he really just kind of put together a product that we thought was really attractive, because that was one of the things we really wanted, was that you wanted to put this on. It wasn't just something that you were doing just because it was helping in some way. Like we wanted it to be a piece of gear you were excited about wearing.
Yeah, and that makes total sense now, knowing that you know someone at Noble because they're a legit company, and you just see so many products come to market that are just such garbage, and it's just like a cash grab. It's such an obvious cash grab from the people that are doing it. So it's just like so refreshing to see a real product, and now it makes total sense why yours is awesome.
Thanks.
Because you have good design, good team, and everything. How'd you meet that guy?
Through another friend who is actually his brother-in-law. So it was kind of perfect. You know, that's one of the greatest things about like having, you know, people in your, like a good network of people is like when you throw it out there and say, hey, we're building this thing, you know, we're really passionate about it. People want to help. And that's been one of the greatest assets we've had is our network of people who have, so many people have stepped up and said, hey, I have this connection, or I can offer this, and they've helped us along the way in a lot of ways.
That's great. So like, as far as like manufacturing the product and getting that done, what was that like?
That was difficult. Kyle can speak more to like the actual choosing of all the because, you know, we looked at so many different samples and so many different materials, and we really wanted we wanted everything to be premium and like well made. So like we really looked at a lot of different.
Well, yeah, really to your point about how a lot of materials are being, they're garbage, a lot of stuff we're buying out there, like that was not something we were interested in. You know, we wanted it to be a premium product, something that like when you took it out of the package and you held it and felt it, you know, you knew you had something special, right? So that was like one of my biggest key things was just, you know, spending as much time as I could researching different types of neoprenes. You know, there's all different types of combinations of neoprenes. You know, a beer koozie, right? Those are made out of neoprene, but that's not the kind of neoprene you necessarily want keeping you warm in the water. You know, I had no idea. Getting the type of the outer shell, a good nylon product, right? Besides like the cheaper polyesters. And, you know, we were really, really adamant about like getting the feel right, the quality right, and making sure that the whole thing came together as comfortable as well as fashionable.
Yeah. And it's a work in progress. Like right now we're reconstructing certain elements of the product and trying to like improve it. So, and
that's the fun part though, right? It's like figuring out what works, learning, hearing back from the audience, what you like, you know, what they don't like, right? I mean, and then reiterating.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you decide on 1.8 millimeters?
We tried a bunch of different versions of that. And you know, so there's really, maybe you should explain kind of like why.
All right. So like the 1.8 millimeter thing is dictated by two things, right? It's the actual neoprene, which is in the center of two pieces of fabric that are glued to either side of that. So what you're getting when you're feeling that's the outer fabric, which I sourced about like 20 different types of fabrics just for the outside part of the neoprene, let alone the time it goes into trying to find the best quality neoprene, right? So like looking for flexibility, right? You want something that's going to be able to expand and contrast equally, fits snugly on you, but not too tight. You know what I mean? You want something that's keeps you really warm. So like a high grade CR neoprene is what we use specifically. So, you know, after we got all those dimensions, right? So like the outer shell is 0.4 millimeters. And then the inner shell, which would be the neoprene itself, was 10 or
1 millimeter. Yeah. So it really came down to like that, making that decision. Yeah. Cool.
You know, so like, you know, like what you want from a neoprene standpoint, we knew we wanted to have enough protection to keep you warm. So we're around a millimeter. But then when you go into the fabrics, different fabrics are different millimeters. It could be a 0.3, you know, and then that is now times 2 because it's on either side. So now it's 0.6. So that's kind of how the number.
But we went with the 1 millimeter because we wanted to be able enough to give you the protection and make you feel a little bit more comfortable in that particular part of your body, but not be overkill, you know? Right. And that's why. So it's still a pretty thin neoprene.
Right. Because yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I wouldn't hate to see a 3 millimeter.
Okay.
Or even a 5 millimeter, you know?
That's great feedback.
Full I mean, it's almost like, why not? Yeah. I know, like, have you guys ever surfed before?
Yeah.
Tried.
Yeah, it was same. But yeah, I mean, like, so I did like winter surfing and tried, as you said. And, you know, I always wore like the 3, 4, 5 wetsuit. So to me, that was like always the standard of like what's going to keep you warm. So like, I guess when I first saw that you guys were doing a 1.8 millimeter, in my head, I was like, I don't know, that might be a little too light. Because I just know that like for surfing, I always needed a 3, 4, 5, 3 millimeter. But then having used your product, like, yeah, it's good. Like, I don't need any more. I guess, like, to what you said, 3 millimeters might be overkill, but maybe some people just really want to.
Well, it's also the quality too, right? Like, so some of the wetsuits, they're going to use like a lesser quality, right? Because if you think about making a whole bodysuit out of neoprene, you know, if you're using a real high premium one, that's going to be a really expensive suit.
Yeah, neoprene is very pricey.
It's one of the most expensive materials to work with on the market.
Yeah, and it's hard to work with.
Yeah.
That's another
A
problem.
lot of lessons learned on this road, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sure many more.
But that's good feedback, and we'll definitely test, you know, thicker versions of it for different situations too. I mean, like sometimes I'll cold plunge in some like gnarly situation where I'm like, we hike in sometimes to these places and cold plunge in a waterfall in like upstate New York. And that is so cold. Like that's another level of cold.
And you're not going anywhere warm soon, like, or in the woods.
Yeah.
Cold.
And I know that that's not a standard use case, right?
Right.
But hell, like it's nice to have gear that you know can hold up in that situation, you know?
Yeah. And just a little pro tip out there from surfing: if you want to keep yourself extra warm, urinate in the neoprene, insulate it up there. Old surfing trick.
That definitely works.
But yeah, and so as far as like you know, your whole thing about, you know, keeping the boys warm and everything, is there any science on it? Have you guys come across?
So we really haven't gone that down the rabbit hole on that. It's not really like, you know, the science that we've seen is very mixed.
Yeah,
I will say that. Well, what I have read is that cooler conditions are better for the boys when you are looking to get somebody pregnant, essentially, right? And when I say cooler, it's like 4 degrees cooler than your body temperature, essentially, right? And I've heard a lot of people are online making a lot of big statements about like cold is really good for your balls. I don't see anything that says that like 36 degree water or even the 45 to 50 degree water is good for them, you know? If that's not correct, I'd love to see a scientific paper that says that is better.
Yeah.
But what our product isn't doing is making your balls hot. You're still going in freezing cold water. So like the difference is maybe like 15 degrees than what the water actually is. I don't know, I'm just making up a number basically, but like the boys are still being exposed to water that's like 45, 50 degrees, whatever it is, maybe even 60 degrees at best. I don't know. So it's not doing a disservice in any way, right? If anything, though, it's definitely preventing things like frostbite. I personally have had a couple of issues. It's not every single time where I've had like severe acute pain down there from like, I don't know what if the water was colder than usual, if it was just some weird day for me, I don't know, but I've definitely had situations where like it was just really painful there. And I have heard of people getting loss of sensation issues where like, you know, any extremity is not going to be prioritized for blood flow when you're in really, really cold water. It's going to get shunted to the core, right? So your extremities, anyone that has a vulnerable extremity should probably do something about it, whether it's your hands, feet, or your balls.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking extreme conditions for extremities. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just safe to be on the safe side of this.
Yeah.
And one more thing that I also wanted to tell people about what you could do with your shorts is actually for the sauna, that is bad for your reproductive health. You definitely like, there's definitely studies that show that sauna use can actually lower your fertility. So one thing that you actually also can do with your shorts is when you're in the sauna, you could put an ice cube in there.
Dude, I never thought of that. That's brilliant.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Or if it's an ice pack, it'll just hold them right in there.
Exactly, yeah, which could be a cool little like extension for you guys.
I'm done having kids, so lay on the heat, but I love that idea.
Yeah, so just a cool little...
That's actually a brilliant idea.
Yeah, sauna shorts.
Even like an insert or something like that, and then you could just like pull it out and get right in the cold plunge.
It's like a cup made of ice. You know, like to stay like a cup.
Yeah.
You know, boop, slide it right in. Make a little sleeve so you can slide it in.
That's kind of brilliant.
You can even put your shorts in the freezer beforehand.
Oh my God.
Get them wet, throw them in there. Rough getting on. No, like the cup. Make a little like, you know, like those baby chew toys, those ice ones, but you make it in a cup form. You know what I mean? They just slide it right in and gets warm. You put it back in the freezer.
The baby can chew on it.
Right. Hey, it's multifaceted. Look at that. Double the bang for your buck.
So yeah, how's everything going? So you guys are, how old is your company now?
We launched the product like 4 months ago.
Like we're almost 2 years old, I guess, from inception.
Yeah, we started working on this like 2 years ago, but we only launched the product like 4 years ago.
And so what's like your strategy been lately?
Figure it out. It's been a wild ride. Just every day, just trying to learn something new.
We're learning a ton.
Yeah, a lot of reading, it's a lot.
So we have a couple of advantages like you. I also come from a production background. So like we do have like the video creation abilities. We have an old rapport, like we've been friends forever. So we're able to like just joke around on camera and stuff. So a lot of our videos do lean on like some element of comedy, but not all of them, some of them. And we really enjoy doing that. So we've been doing a lot of video content. We've been meeting people like you who are, influential in the world of cold plunging and just, trying to get the shorts out there to people who can like test them and give us feedback and tell people about them. And we are like kind of just like dipping our toes and like learning how to like do the social media thing. So that's really it right now. And then working on our next product and just trying to keep making the products better and word of mouth and
Getting feedback.
I heard Andrew Schulz talked about your product.
yeah, that was really cool. So my background was also in the comedy business. I actually moved to New York to do stand-up comedy like in my early 20s.
Oh, shit.
And I met Andrew doing that. So Andrew was just like one of those comedians, like you saw him performing and you just knew like he was going to be like special. It wasn't just that he was a great stand-up. He was like the most driven, like focused, like knew like he was like believing in himself person that I've ever met. Like maybe to this day, everything that he like envisioned for himself, like he has done. It's like really wild. So like I met him early on. He was doing like, I guess you could call them open mics. Like there was this comedy club in the Village. It was called the Village Lantern. It was right near the Comedy Cellar. And Andrew used to like run a comedy show there because the way a lot of guys would get stage time is like you would go to some of these clubs and they called it barking. You basically stood on the street and you were like, hey, you want to see a free comedy show? You had. And you bring in a couple of people that don't speak English. They're from like the Netherlands on vacation, a couple of like NYU people who are wasted. And like next thing you know, you've got like a little bit of an audience and you're doing your set. So when I met Andrew, he was doing that. But he wasn't like these other comics. Like he would do things that other comics wouldn't do. Like he would be like, I'm going to do an hour tonight. And you were like, Andrew, dude, you've been doing comedy for like a year. There's no way you even have an hour of material. But he'd be like, I'm going to do an hour. And he would do it. I watched him do this once, like he was probably like 2 years into doing comedy. And he did an hour. And honestly, it was a solid hour. So I started doing I was doing comedy, I was liking it, but then I got into like production and video. So I started just like shooting videos with comedians. Like I started doing videos with Andrew. I started shooting stuff for Andrew. I shot a bunch of like documentary stuff with Andrew when he was like young, kind of like on his way up, talking about like who he wants to, which I've given all that back to Andrew. He actually used that recently in his comedy tour. The Life tour that he just did. Kyle and I got to go to MSG, gave us tickets. We got to go, it was awesome.
That was a great experience.
Yeah. So I guess I'll like give you a little bit of my comedy experience too, because it all kind of ties together with the Andrew thing. But I was doing production stuff and then I met the owner of a comedy club called Stand Up New York. And he had this like empty black box theater above his comedy club. And no one was doing anything with it. It was just empty. He was paying rent on it. And I was like, what if we turn this into a studio/podcast network, whatever. So he was like, let's do it. So I basically built a whole like studio, got all the equipment, like put this whole thing together. And we went to every comedian and we were like, hey, if you want to start a podcast, you could do it here. We'll do it for you. Well, we just want like an ad split if you ever make any advertising money on it. We don't own it. It's your podcast. And we ended up doing it. And we did shows. We did one with Nikki Glazer. We did one with Charlie Murphy while he was still alive. We did one with, actually it's a really popular one called Guys We Fucked, where these two female, it's like super popular now.
I've heard of it.
These two female comedians, it literally interviewed guys they've had sex with. It's kind of hilarious.
I'm sold.
Do you know how you get on that show?
It's a great show, but we ended up doing like 20 podcasts and all kinds of video stuff. And then we do like live shows at night. So it was a really fun time in my life. I was living in New York. I was doing that. And Andrew and I were friends and it was great. So once we got the product launched, he was like, look, let me do a quick thing on my show just to like help you guys out. And was really cool of him to do that, because that definitely was like a big boost, a big help for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As far as your stand-up, were you a crowd work guy like Andrew, or you had more routines?
I did more I guess it's a little bit of crowd work. I don't know. It was short-lived. It was like 3 years. I would recommend anyone that's kind of interested in it, or just like thinks they just try it, because even if you don't do it like as a career or whatever, it's just one of those things where like, once you do that, kind of like cold plunging, right? It's one of those things like you're terrified. You're like, I don't want to get into that cold plunge. I don't want to get up on that stage. I'm going to forget. And then like, once you get up there and you get into the flow of it, even if you're not doing that well, it feels amazing. And then you come off and like, Kyle, this is why you should do it. Huge dopamine hit. You're like flying high afterwards the rest of the day. So so that's why comedians are so addicted to it. I actually never thought of it like this, but this is 100% correct. Just like cold plunging, it's the same exact feeling. So that's why comedians are so addicted to it, the way we get addicted to getting in cold water, because they just get that dopamine ride all day long, every time they get on stage. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
From the time that you launched your company, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
That's a good question. I think maybe we would have had more of a go-to-market strategy. Even though like I do read a lot that people do say that you get caught up and you waste too much time working on strategy, and you should just get to market and then iterate, make changes from there. But I do feel like we had a lot of time in the development phase where we were making content, but then we kind of like, we could have been spending all that time really hyping things up and trying to build as much as we could in that time. We were really focused on building the product and getting out a video every once in a while when we could. But we could have been saying like, hey world, this is who we are, doing shows like this, because the development process, and people told me this, and I should have believed them more. People told me it's going to take you longer than you think to create a product and get it to market. And for some reason, I just thought like, no, I think they're wrong. We could do it quick. And it does take time. And there are setbacks. And that entire time like could be used to build engagement, build community, meet people, talk to people about things, learn more about what the market actually anticipates wants, versus just like focusing so much, hunkering down on the product, which is what we did. We were super focused on. Kyle was just like so full. He was testing so many different materials. Like his whole garage was covered in this stuff.
Well, let's tell him about how I tested neoprene.
Yeah.
So, there's expensive folders.
He keyed all over it.
You gotta keep it warm. So there's expensive, like, scientific grade equipment you could buy for tens of thousands of dollars that I just can't afford. But then I found a couple of videos of scientists talking about how if you take a lighter and you melt neoprene and smell the fumes, the more toxic and chemically it smells, the worse the quality of the neoprene. So I've probably gained like 10 different types of diseases I don't even know about for sniffing neoprenes from other countries, but I definitely found the right one.
Okay. Huff and glue.
But it was true. You could clearly smell the difference. It was actually kind of mind-blowing.
Wow. Who would have thought? I don't even have anything to say. But I'm not surprised.
My wife was curious. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, smell this one. Does it smell good?
We've talked about using your shorts in saunas, obviously cold plunges. Can you think of any other use cases for your product?
So like we're both like, we're like really into CrossFit. We're athletes. We really like to work out. I really think that this is the perfect sort of like crossover product for like the athlete who's also doing stuff outdoors. So like a Tough Mudder or something like that. It's perfect. We're out there. We're kind of coming into like that Northeast Tough Mudder season in the spring. It's cold still. You're diving into freezing cold water, but then you have to get up and like sprint through the woods and then jump into water again. I really think that's like the most perfect product and short for people who are doing that. So that's a place where I would love to find a way to get to people who are into Tough Mudders, who are into Spartan races. I know a little bit Ironman, any of that kind of stuff, and get feedback. Like, does this help? Is this better? I mean, because we've been spending so much time now on like TikTok and Instagram in this world, and we get so much of this like, Tough Mudder content, and like everything they put out is like a guy like going under, 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, 400 miles, 500 miles, 700 miles, 800 miles, 900 miles, 1,000 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 miles an electric fence in freezing cold water in the middle of like, March or whatever. And then every obstacle seems to have some kind of a water element.
Especially by the time they get out, they got no balls. They've all like up in the cavity.
Yeah. So it's kind of a perfect thing to put on your body. So I'm going to do a Tough Mudder in the spring and try it out. But anyone that's interested in it, like, hit us up because I'd love to get your feedback on this.
Yeah.
Get these shorts on people and see what they think.
I know a lot of like cold plunge companies are affiliated with like Spartan races too, where like after the race people want to like jump in the cold plunge. So it's already like there in the space. So
well, that's interesting. Having the cold plunges after the race, you're saying they're set up?
Yeah, like those portable ones. If there's any good use for a portable cold plunge that is overpriced and costs $5,000, there's almost no use cases for them. But the one use case is for Tough Mudders and Spartan races because they are portable. Definitely. But they are ridiculously overpriced. Don't buy one.
Do you have a cold plunge that you like love, or you're ocean guy, right?
Yeah, I think that the ocean is just the healthiest and the best. I like a cheap cold plunge. I'm currently using the Mod Plunge. So what that is, it's a modular solution. So they kind of send you all the parts and you build it yourself. And what I like about that is that you can swap parts out and you can kind of grow it, add to it. So I've like since added ozone and whatnot. So that's what I'm using now. I really like it. I recommend it. As far as like my dream cold plunge would be one that makes ice. So I think the Morosco Forge is really just the only thing on the market awesome. that makes ice. So that costs like $20,000. Not in the budget right now, but that would be.
I know. So many people reach out to me like, hey, what is a budget way to do that? Because like in the summer, that's when it's like the best.
The best.
So I was cold plunging only in the winter for years because I didn't really think to do it. I was like, I don't own a cold plunge. Then Kyle built a DIY cold plunge.
Which, for the record, I didn't even know why I was building it at the time. I was just helping him out.
And then he became obsessed with it. And when like August came and I was like hitting that thing up like every chance I got, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest. Like I get why it's so popular, like Florida and like hot places.
I mean, cold plunging in the summer is incredible.
Yeah, awesome. Right up at that.
Incredible.
I can't get that thing cold enough.
What'd you do? You did a stock tank, right?
Yeah, I bought a freezer chest.
Oh, you did the freezer chest. Oh, so you make ice.
Yeah, well, I made the no. I bought like a freezer chest that I sit in.
Right, but it makes ice, right?
No,
it doesn't.
No.
You don't turn it on.
Yeah, explain the process of like what you do.
Well, when you're saying make ice, like an ice maker.
Well, the freezer converts make ice.
Yeah, I mean, if you maybe so essentially like it's filled with water and you plug it in and it activates the cooling, which would freeze the thing, but it doesn't necessarily freeze the water.
Oh, really?
I guess I could turn it all the way down. I've never cranked it all the way.
Yeah, if you use an Inkbird.
I have an Inkbird. Oh yeah, I have it. But the lowest I've ever gotten was like 38.
It doesn't go lower?
I've only gone to 30.
Oh, I think you could push it.
I am that.
Maybe we should try. He is the kind of guy. Now that you said that, he's gonna push it.
Yeah, is that a challenge?
There's extra dopamine at the end of the tunnel.
But like back to this point though, in the summertime, that's when I started cranking that down this past summer. That doesn't happen in the wintertime. I try and hover it at like 45.
Cool.
But I mean, I could probably ice that bad boy up now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But he did a great job on it. Honestly, I think it's one of those things where like, as long as you make sure you unplug that thing before you get in, like
definitely always unplug a freezer chest before you get in it. Like that's huge.
Yeah. It's dangerous. My electrician friend was like, don't ever do that. But, the way he built it was not that expensive. What was it, like $1,000 all in?
Oh yeah. So back to that. Right. It's, like the cheapest version is what I built, I think. And it's I probably spent about $1,200 all in on it. And it's been up and running for almost 2 years now.
And you got the ozone, you've got all that.
It's really not a difficult thing to do. It's just time consuming, but
explain why it's like the epoxy process.
Well, you gotta sand the liner out. You gotta do a 3-phase epoxy application. There's dry times in between that. You gotta caulk all the seams with the special type of caulk that you can epoxy over. We actually have a video I think up on our Instagram with that.
Yeah.
But it's worth great. I mean, it's much cheaper than buying one. I think mine will outlast the ones you buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you save a ton of money too.
Save a ton of money. I mean, like the freezer chest was $600, was still a lot of money. I couldn't imagine spending $5,000.
Yeah, for something to break.
Right.
Yours gets colder. I know. That's why.
Like Edge, what is it? Edge, they just went out of business because of all their chillers were garbage.
Dropping out, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And like, I mean, there's some pretty hardcore people out there that don't even consider it an ice bath if it doesn't have ice.
Interesting. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, and because, yeah, like the real hardcore guys, like, I mean, they would say that there is something chemically happening when just the ice to touch your skin, like, it's more of a full body experience.
It's a bigger dopamine dump.
I think so. I mean, obviously it's colder, but just the ice hitting your skin, it activates more.
I do see that. Like I've done cold plunges when like ice baths like that. It does feel maybe there's something also about just visually seeing all that ice around you. Definitely sets something off in your brain. You do notice a major difference when you get from like the mid 40s into like even the high 30s. Like there's like it feels like you go like from linear to like exponential all of a sudden. Like the ocean recently kind of turned. I noticed it yesterday in cold plunging. I was like, this is a lot colder than it was even like last week. And it's like, once you hit that like high 30s, it's really cold, you know? And then moving water is a whole different thing. Moving water is just that cold plunge that Rogan has. Do you know which one that is? That moves the water?
Yeah. What's it called?
That must be a pricey one.
Moving waters.
I don't even know why you'd want to hit that button, to be honest, you know?
Yeah, I hate that I forget what it's called. Blue Cube is what it's called.
Yeah. How much?
That's like a $20,000.
Yeah, those are expensive.
Cold plunge.
But it's funny because he was kind of resistant to cold plunging, if I recall, you know? And then he became like all about it.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Rogan cold plunging.
Yeah. That's all. That's where you discovered it? Or is that what kind of like set you over the edge to like really get into it?
I guess that's where you find out that there's like science and something more than just cold plunging. I mean, yeah, like I did it a couple times. I mean, I did it like kind of like without even knowing. Like I just thought it was fun to jump in cold water. And yeah, one time I saw this guy on just social media doing it, and then I tried it again. And then once Rogan did it, it was kind of like, oh, like there's actually benefits to it and everything. So that's how. But I mean, I say for most things, I wouldn't do so much of what I do if it wasn't for Joe.
Yeah. It's funny because like, so another comedian who's a very close friend of mine is Mike Cannon. He's a great comedian, great guy. He lives in New York, and we did a video. It's on our Instagram. I hit him up. I was like, Mike, I would love just to like, because he's never cold plunged, and I know he's sort of like another person who, you know, he likes to experiment. He likes to try everything. Okay. And he was like, I was like, I want to film you doing cold plunge. Like, you've never done it before. I just want to like, see what that's like. And he was like, let's do it. I'm game. So I went to his house, set up the cold plunge. The video is hilarious. He's like, it's like brutal for him. It's like he'd never experienced it. He was like shaking. It was crazy. But he gets out afterwards and he's like, I've never felt so good. He hits me up the next day and he's like, dude, because he went from cold plunging with me to driving right into the city to do shows at the Comedy Cellar all night long. And he's like, I was on stage just crushing it all night long. He's like, I've never been so locked in. Like, what the fuck? Now, dude, the dude cold plunges every single day.
Really?
Every day he bought one like the next day. He's texting me, actually, I got to connect him with you because he wants to do a DIY one now. Actually, maybe I'll send him with a mod tub. I don't know, but he's sold. So it's just so funny that like going back to that like comedy, like dopamine thing. I think some of us are just programmed, like we're just looking for that in some way. And like some people are more prone to it. People that are into stand-up comedy are obviously looking for a rush, and cold plunge just fits so perfectly with that.
Yeah. And everyone's just looking for an edge. Like everybody wants to just perform better.
Yeah.
So it's just such an obvious performance enhancer.
Definitely is. Because you're like, it makes you so acutely aware, you know, it just brings everything right to the forefront.
So you guys into any other biohacking modalities?
Well, I did start taking creatine recently.
That's good. That's biohacking.
Welcome.
I kind of feel like I'm late to the party. I do.
Like my wife takes creatine.
Yeah, I love creatine. The only thing I don't like about it is it does bloat me. I hold more water weight.
Have you tried different brands?
No.
Played around to do that.
No. I bought one from Whole Foods. I've had it for like a year, and I just keep scooping out of it.
Try a different one, because I've had that. I switched brands, no problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's kind of like a known thing.
Okay. Fuck.
Yeah.
I wish I knew.
Yeah. Don't keep taking the same one if it's blowing you.
I have long arms and legs, so it's hard for me to like get like like look a lot bigger. You know what I mean? Like I'll like be able to lift a lot more, but like I want to kind of like bulk up a little bit more. So, and also I've read so much about like it's cognitive, and also another thing I was reading too is that if you get less sleep in a night for some reason, but you've been on creatine, you'll recover still a little bit better than if you didn't. So there's all kinds of different benefits I've read. But one of the main ones, I want to just like really keep building muscle, especially I just, turned 40 a couple of years ago. So I want to make sure I just turned 40 a couple of years ago. I want to keep, I want to
hold on.
Oh yeah. I want to like maintain like muscle mass.
I just turned 40 like a couple of years ago.
How about you?
My latest obsession is lights. Just turning all my lights to red or orange, just replacing bulbs and everything, trying to protect my eyes more and more. That's like one thing that really just sucks, is like your eyes aging as you get older. So I'm really trying to protect that as much as possible.
What do the color lights do?
Well, blue light first it definitely throws off your circadian rhythm. So like cause like the sun right now in the middle of the day is emitting blue light. So that like energizes you. As the sun sets, the colored temperature goes from blue to orange and red, and that relaxes you. It's easy on the eyes, and it's healing.
Yeah. I have a friend who bought those glasses that he's got like multiple shades, but like, and I know Huberman just put out a version of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm definitely shades. So that they change the light to be a more red light. So like as you're winding down at night, you can wear that and it will slow you down and relax you and help you kind of get into that sleep mode.
Do they make them in kid sizes?
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, it's crazy too. Like when you wear the glasses, your eyes get used to it, and then when you take them off and you're around blue light, you'll just be like, oh my God, you get blinded by it.
Wow, that's interesting.
So that's kind of how you know it works.
Yeah, I definitely want to try that now.
Yeah, you have to. Once you start, you'll never go back.
The next rabbit hole. Great.
And I'll even show you my lights around here. Like they're just red lights. That's awesome. So it's so much better.
So I love sauna, and I really do want to purchase a sauna. And I've been going back and forth. I know that some of the newer the UV ones, like they have like red lights built into them as well.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I wouldn't mess with that.
No.
Yeah, like I feel like those ones are just so like they're just China knockoffs. Like they're not actually good. If you're gonna want to like combine red light with sauna, I would just get the red light separately from like a Juve or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that's the problem. Like all those ones, anything that's just like combined, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just the knockoff.
Oh, that's a big gimmick.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. I mean, I think even the infrared ones, like I think there's only a couple brands doing actually good infrared saunas. Most of them are just like, Costco's now selling an infrared
I also read
sauna.
too, there's a lot of like negative things some of these the cheap lights, the knockoff lights can do to you.
You'd have
that
to
people
imagine.
don't even know about.
Probably, yeah. You'd have to imagine. So I stay away. I don't like red light therapy. I don't like the way it makes my eye feel.
I've never tried it before.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I sauna every day, so I'm all set with the red light.
Yeah.
And he does a traditional sauna. I've actually never done it in an ultraviolet. Is it UV? That's what it is, right? I've never infrared. That's it.
Yeah.
Infrared. I've never done an infrared sauna before, but I've heard it doesn't feel as hot, right?
No, you definitely don't bring a sweat like you would in like a steam or the traditional one.
Yeah. Well, they say that like the UV like penetrates the skin more, so they say you sweat more, but without feeling the heat sensation.
But also too, what they don't tell you is all your it's only parts of the body that are exposed to the light. So like some of them you'll be sitting on a wall like this, and the lights are here. Yeah. You're only getting the benefits here, right? Like where you're in a steam sauna or something, it's full body. That's another thing I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm not a huge fan. I just like the hot. What temperature do you like your sauna at?
Oh man, so ours has like I guess like a safety setting, but I hacked that because I got to splash cold water on the thermostat, and I try and crank it up to like 220.
220?
Yeah.
That's a good, what do you do, like 10 minutes, 15?
I try and stay in 15 to 20. It'll take me about 15 minutes though to crank it up to 220.
Right.
So that kind of, so it's...
Because 220, that's a high number.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, it's the quickest way to get out.
Yeah.
Get it up to 220.
Yeah.
But we went to a place to do contrast therapy near us. We did a video about it, and it's called Float 41.
Yeah, Float 41.
And it's in Connecticut, in Cromwell.
Shout out.
Yeah, they're great, and they have like float tanks and everything. But we went there, and to me, I was like, if I could just like have a setup like that in my basement, where I'm going from cold plunge to sauna, traditional sauna. And she really told us, she was like, traditional sauna is what you want for the contrast therapy. That was
biggest dopamine release. That was
the greatest thing. I felt good for like days after that.
Have you done that before?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's the best.
It's the best. There's nothing better.
That's the only time I've ever really done it.
Our next segment, we have our cold take. Give us a hot take that is cold.
You don't always have to give a motivational speech before you go in the fucking cold plunge. I should probably say that again.
You could even look at the camera when you say it.
You don't always have to give a motivational speech every time you plunge.
Amen. Amen. It is,
Listen to some heavy metal and chill out.
being in the cold.
Mix it in. Just mix that in. You can still do the motivational speech sometimes.
I'll tell you what, man. Being in the cold plunge space, I have come to despise motivational messages. It just makes me want to throw up.
And how are you memorizing this the way you're sitting in there? You know what I mean? Like, and nailing it.
That is one of the hardest things to do, though, by the way, is to perform on camera when you're cold plunging. This is a challenge we have all the time. We're like, we want to make this video. And there's this epic scene that takes place in the cold plunge, but you have to memorize all these lines for it.
Yeah, right. Like,
That would be fun.
I'm like, dude, I've got like 5 minutes tops. It's like 32 degrees the water right now. You know what I mean?
you're like 14 minutes into a take 5. You're just getting nothing out of it. Cancel this.
They must have like, either they have cue cards written up or they have good teleprompters. There's good teleprompters. You can buy.
Yeah, but
the water's not cold.
It's conspiracy corner. I mean, I think though, first of all, if you look closely, the video is edited a billion times. There's a ton of cuts. So if you watch the water, it's just moving. And like if they're, with their breathing, like water vapor, like that just changes. So they're doing it in tons of cuts. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if they had someone off camera just reading them the line and then they just have to fire it back. And they go sentence by sentence. So that's the secret, in my opinion. Because it is hard to read when you're in there, especially with the camera. They're kind of far back. For me,
the first minute, it's tough to get any word out, or sentence out in a way that you can actually understand what I'm saying,
I remember we shot that video on that frozen lake that we were talking about.
Right.
With our friend Jessica, and she didn't know she was going to have to talk in there. She had never gone into a open water cold plunge situation, and when we told her we were going to be talking, she was like, wait, I have to talk? And I was like, oh, this could be actually pretty bad. Because it's a lot getting in the cold water, especially if it's open water, and now you got to talk to somebody and get interviewed. I mean, I was filming, so I was cool.
But like you said, it goes away, it subsides, so that first minute is the hardest.
She crushed it. She ended up crushing it, by the way. Yeah, nailed it.
But that's true. The first minute is that's the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last. It was like first minute, last minute, and then everything in between is not terrible. All right, on to our next segment. Underrated, overrated. So it's just going to be rapid fire.
Let's go.
Pizza.
Underrated.
That's a tough one, okay? Because everyone loves pizza, so I can't say it's underrated. Everyone in the world loves it, but it was also the greatest thing that was ever made. Overrated.
Wow.
Contrast therapy.
Underrated. It's the greatest thing of all time.
Yeah, totally.
Seed oils.
We just had that conversation on the way up here.
We were just debating this.
That's so funny. Oh man,
are we talking about the hype of around how bad they are
good or bad for you?
It's underrated or overrated. That's the segment.
Okay,
your interpretation.
Overrated, definitely.
Okay. TikTok.
Overrated.
Bitcoin.
Underrated. Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
To the moon.
We're at 107 right now as we speak.
Really? Wow.
G-Master lenses.
Overrated.
What?
Yeah, that's not for you.
Oh, is there a production guy thing? Sorry, not one of these guys.
I think they're overrated too. This next section is brought to you by Cold Plunge Memes on Instagram, the funniest cold plunge memes on the internet.
What are you doing in the sauna? I don't understand saunas. I've been in a sauna one time for 30 seconds and I sat down and I said, so is this it? It's just really hot? What's the point? I'm just gonna sit and be extremely uncomfortable and sweating? I don't get it. Why would anyone do that? Choose to do it. It's like it's a torture chamber. It would be a great way to torture someone.
This cracks me up because Matt Walsh is such a curmudgeon that even a sauna can't win him over.
Yeah, just a professional troll.
Like, he has to hate on it. Like, I don't believe him. And like, I believe that he's an authentic guy, but I think he just wants to make fun of guys going in the sauna.
I can't imagine what he'd say about cold plunges.
Yeah, you should. I'd love to hear that one.
I'm sure we'll get a take at some point.
Definitely.
So you don't think it's a torture chamber? Or it is. I mean, he's actually kind of not wrong that it is a form of torture.
Yeah.
But a good torture.
You're right. I think that's what we're all chasing, right? We're torturing ourselves.
Torture's good. You need it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have the highs without the lows.
You know?
I don't think he understands that.
Yeah, working out is torture sometimes. Everything that's, right?
Sometimes getting stabbed in the eye is the best thing that could happen to you.
Next up, we have Tulsi Gabbard.
That's the one thing about New Jersey that I couldn't swallow is I think it's principally wrong to charge people to go to the beach. Like, the ocean belongs to everyone. And I couldn't stomach paying money to go and jump in the ocean.
So I think that's a very idyllic opinion because she comes from I've been to Hawaii. It's the most beautiful, perfect place in the world and everyone respects the beach. I grew up going to a beach in Long Island called Jones Beach, okay?
Same.
And not only should they have charged, they shouldn't have let most of us go on that beach. People have come to New York, Tulsi, and then tell us, I guess you've been to New Jersey, and tell us if you still feel that way because people trash that beach. They leave their stuff everywhere. It's disgusting. There's stuff in the water. There's clothing in the water. There's condoms in the water. So I think that maybe they should charge more potentially,
So you're saying as like a gatekeeping measure?
I mean, a lot of us, maybe me included, shouldn't have been allowed on that beach at one point. Yeah.
See, I think that there should be jail time for littering on the beach. Like, if you're going to go to the beach and litter, straight to jail. And, send a couple people to jail. That fixes that problem. I mean, I think it's absolutely criminal to take something like the beach and charge people for it. I mean, it's like next steps, they're going to just charge you for the air you breathe. Tax on air. So that's kind of where that leads. And yeah, I just think it's just criminal to charge people to use the beach. And I think that what they do is they get around it by they charge you parking. And that's what Jones Beach is. They're not actually charging you to use the beach. They're charging you to park at the beach.
Oh, that's a good point. No, I do, yeah. Joking aside, I do think it's awesome that for everyone to have access to the beach, but you're absolutely right. Clean up after yourself, because I have seen so many people, especially at that beach, just trash it and not even think twice.
Yeah. What about beach stickers? How do we feel about beach stickers? So it's like,
that's charging for the beach.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's like keeping it to the town, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there could be private beaches. Like, I mean, there's plenty of homes here on the Jersey Shore.
Can there be private beaches, though?
Well, then now you're talking about private property in general.
Well, I thought that it was you can't have a private beach, you can have private access to the beach.
Yeah, which is the same thing as like the parking.
But like, can you come from the water and get on the beach then, right?
Yes.
That's legal.
Yes.
And then I'm sure their property line is at some point where you can't technically enter the property.
But where we live in Connecticut, all these, because there's a bunch of like rich towns and, and then some not so rich towns in the middle of that. And the rich towns all, like, you have a beach sticker, you have to, and I get it, you're a tax-paying person, but then if you want to pay for the beach, I think in Greenwich it's like $100 or something crazy. It's something like crazy, like, and it's
the Long Island Sound.
The Long Island Sound. It's like the worst beach.
Funny part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I'm okay with private beaches, but I also think that if you're a tax-paying citizen and there's a public beach in your town, like, what are taxes paying for if they're not paying for the fact that you can't even go to your own beach in your own town and you have to pay extra?
All right, you're right. So now I'm going to amend my thing where it's free beach, but corporal punishment for littering.
Straight to jail. Death penalty. So this last segment, now I specifically phrased it this way because I don't want it to be a motivational quote. But it's in the same vein. If you could put one message on a billboard, what would that be? You could plug your brand too.
Live cold. Sorry to steal it from you.
Dude. Yes, dude, nailed it.
With a period?
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
No exclamation point.
No?
No emoji? All right. Yeah, I would say live cold. So we really thought hard about this when we were creating ARKTK. We were like, what could sum us up in a way? And that was it. Live cold. Embrace the cold. You know what I really hate? It's a lot of my family who I adore live in Florida now, and all they want to talk about is the weather and how cold things are here. And people who live in the Northeast or in parts of America or Canada that are much colder, I feel like there's only one way to actually live in places that get cold, and that's to embrace it. Get excited about it. Even say you like it, and the more times you push yourself into that cold, get into freezing cold water. Go outside more. Just be outside, embrace it, versus being one of those people who, at one point in my life, I'm almost embarrassed to say, when I was a hipster in Brooklyn, I would walk around shivering, afraid of the cold, it's gonna hurt me. And when you embrace it, when you live cold, when you're all in on the cold, it ends up actually being your secret weapon in a way. Where that's your edge. That's how you kind of get excited and and succeed. That's the engine. That's so live cold is what I put up on that billboard.
Oh, live cold.
Boom. So what's next for the company? Any big plans?
Yeah, so next is we're working on our foot armor. So footwear, that's going to be a neoprene, a boot. We're working on that right now. We're designing that right now. We'd like to be to market within a few months if possible, but we're working on that as fast as we can. And then from there, we have another bunch of products that we're going to be working on. Everything from recovery wear, what do you put on when you get out of the cold plunge, to more things to protect you while you're in the cold plunge. And from there, who knows, sky's the limit.
Amazing. And from what I could see, I consider you guys the premier cold plunge apparel company. So I hope you live up to that name. Keep making products.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you, Mike.
Where can people find you?
You can find us on Instagram at ARKTK Coldwear. That's ARKTK Coldwear. Or on our website, ARKTKColdwear.com.
Great. And we'll put the links for everything in the description of this podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Bam! Dude, thank you. That was awesome.
This is the Cold Plunge Podcast with me, Mike Gorman. Be sure to check out the video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel, and check the show notes for any references, studies, or links to anything I spoke about on our website at plungereviews.com/podcasts.